And he said, "Love is the pure light of undifferentiated consciousness." And that sentence changed my life because it resonated with absolute truth. So love is pure, it's vibration, it's energy, it's undifferentiated, meaning that it has no uh, hierarchy. All things are loved equally, and it's conscious, it's aware. Is the best definition of that energy that I felt embraced by, was this pure light of undifferentiated consciousness that completely loved me unconditionally and with no hierarchy of like you had to do this to be loved, or because you did that you're not loved. It was just unconditional.
This episode is sponsored by refractivehealing.com. I highly recommend scheduling a remote healing with Jamie, as she is a talented healer and I had a great experience with her. She performed some kind of healing over me online, and I'm telling you, I was in a state of meditation like in 5 seconds. She's currently offering free healing sessions, so just visit the website refractivehealing.com to book a session with her. I will leave a link to the website in the pinned section below.
So about a year and a half out from being divorced, I still hadn't really gone out dating because I was like, I really didn't have a desire, but I knew that it wasn't healthy just to be a hermit and lock myself up. So eventually I had a nice gentleman had invited me to go out with him, and I said, I'm not ready for that. Let's just be friends. And so we had a friendly relationship. Eventually he invited me to go on a trip with him. I said, oh, no, 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 I'm not ready for a trip either. He said, just bring somebody with you. It'll be fine. My kids are coming. You come. Let's go skiing. And I said, okay, I should do something. I should get out of this like depression. I should go. So I went on this trip, which I had no idea was going to be such a pivotal uh, point in my life. But I went on this trip. I realized that once I got there, that they were drinking and smoking, this and that. We had very little in common. His kids didn't like me. I didn't really enjoy being there. And my cousin who went with me, my cousin Carmen, who is this beautiful 40-year-old woman with big doe eyes, soft hair, lush, Latin woman, and just she was the clarinetist for the Dallas Opera, really beautiful, sophisticated, smart woman. So she came. She was my chaperone. She was also just newly divorced, and so she said, "Sure, I'll come with you." But we both were not having the best time. So I told my friend, I said, "Listen, I think I wasn't really ready for this, and I really appreciate the invitation, but I think I'm going to go back early." So I was leaving a couple of days early from this trip. I missed my kids. I wanted to go home. And he said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think he was ready for me to go too. so, so on the way to the airport, we were just having a good time laughing. And it was kind of blizzard conditions. And we were in Vail and going up a mountain, heading toward the airport, literally heading out, heading home. And it was a very icy mountain road. And I remember that we started spinning the car. He lost control of the car. He was just, really trying hard to keep control of it. But the car, he was turning the wheel this way, but the car was still going straight. There was a car coming down the mountain, and this car, of course, could not stop. And we were like sideways on the road and skidding towards the wall, I guess, and the car hit my side of the door at about 50 miles. They calculated, I think, to be about 50 miles per hour when it hit us. The impact on my side of the door just crushed the door in. I, I remember when all of this started happening that time slowed down. And I remember also everybody being so frantic in the car. They were so, so frantic. But I had like this kind of Zen-like peace. Like I was like completely in a serene space, and time was slow. And I was looking at the guy freaking out driving. I was looking at the back. I saw my cousin. We were in a small red Jeep, and so this Jeep, she was hitting her head on one side of the bar. There got a little crowbar in the back, and then the other side. And I remember looking back, and I saw her eyes, and I'll never forget this because I've never seen such fear or absolute horror in anyone's face. And I remember just feeling so much compassion for her and so sorry that I had invited her on this trip and that we were in this horrible car wreck. And all of this is happening. I suddenly, I just said, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was going to die today. And I'm sure this is an occurrence for all of us when we finally have this moment where we're exiting the planet. We're like, oh, not that I thought I was immortal, but I just thought I had more time. And and I kind of surrendered to it. And then in that surrender, I was enveloped in this presence, luminous light, and this light, not necessarily an entity or a being, but this light was communicating, and not necessarily even telepathically, but more like a download. I can't really explain it. And I was completely embraced and supported. There was absolutely no fear. I was above the car, watching the scene happen, watching the car spin, watching it get hit, watching it fly off this cliff, fall 25 feet before hitting the ground, and then tumbling end over end 10 more times to end up at the bottom of the mountain, which they calculated to be about 80 feet down from from the ledge that we came off of. So the impact was about 25 feet, and then we rolled. But I'm in this serene state, quite detached from the whole thing, just feeling sorrow for my cousin, and being completely embraced. And then I was shown a few things about my life that I was really surprised about. This voice, this being, conveyed to me like there's some things that you never realized about a human life. And I was shown that I had never truly seen or experienced in a visceral way the sun coming up over the horizon and the glory of it, bringing light, and the birds and the dawn of a new day. And like I had never truly appreciated a single day of my life. And I was shown also the sunset and how the evening comes to give us repose and reprieve and a refuge and renewal. And I had never even appreciated this whole cycle of this thing we call life. And next I was shown, this is probably the most curious one because I have no idea why I was shown this, but I was like the fragrance of freshly cut grass, that smell of like when someone's mowing their lawn, like that. And I was shown that I had these beautiful senses, but I hadn't really smelled the roses, much less the freshly cut grass. Everything was sort of a means to an end rather than the end itself. And so I had never really enjoyed just all the beauty of life, the fragrance, the touch, the smell, just being human, like I had never. And then finally I was shown, and probably most poignantly, that I had never really embraced anyone. I mean, truly embrace them, like reach out and touch. In the physical expression of ourselves here on planet Earth, we have these beautiful physical bodies where we can actually embrace each other. I could comb my children's hair, but I mean, it was always a utility. It wasn't an actual embrace of my child's head, let's put it that way, or anyone else. I mean, so I had been shown that I had never really understood the gift of a human embodiment and the ability to unite in that way of reaching out. So I always say now, if you meet me, they say you're like a hugger. Like I am definitely a hugger, because I believe there's such a beautiful gift of just the physical touch and embrace and share of energy. So I remember thinking after it was shown this, like, it's too late. That's all nice, but it's too late for me because I'm dying. Like there's no way to survive that horrible car wreck that I'm watching. And then I was saying, and on top of that, this voice, this presence downloaded. He said, in addition, I was shown that because of my childhood probably, that I had always wanted to be a good girl, like a good friend, a good daughter, a good wife, a good ex-wife, but that there was really no joy. Like my life was flat. It was almost as though I was hollow. It was empty. I was just kind of going through the motions of being alive, doing all the right things, but no joy. And so that's when I was shown, like, my various timelines that I was offered, or destinies available for me. And one of which I was shown by this divine presence is that I could exit the planet. And if I were to exit the planet in this moment of the car wreck, I remember having the thought, well, I don't want to leave my children because they need me. And then this presence showed me that my death, if I chose that timeline, my children weeping at my funeral, their whole life unraveling, them getting married, having children of their own, being fine without me. And in that moment that I was shown that the children would be fine without me, this presence said, and very clearly, each soul is here for the bliss of its own experience. And that means you. And I was like shocked by the you because, I had no idea that I was here for bliss. And again, there was a deep sadness about it because like he was showing me, or she was showing me, whatever the presence was, this, showing me that that I was here for bliss, but that I had not even experienced joy. Rather, life had been, a backpack that I carried that was a heavy backpack of be good, do the right thing, but no joy. The one realization I had as I saw this timeline of which I chose to leave the planet, which was such a great realization, is that, we're here for joy and we're here for bliss. And part of our bliss and our joy is also the dark nights, which I had no idea of that. Like the contrast, I think we come in with soul contracts and soul missions to accomplish certain things in our life. And so we choose certain families and certain conditions, certain cultures, certain bodies, female, male, whatever the case may be, and for the purpose of having that experience, because that on a soul level, which is, by the way, that omnipresent observer on the true soul level is what brings us joy. So if you think about it this way, the way I like to put this into context is that your life is like a movie, shadows and light projecting out onto this blank screen. And, the movie can be a horror film, it could be a comedy, a love story, it could be so many things, cartoons, whatever it could be, right? It's just a movie. But when the camera turns off, like when the projector is turned off, the screen is still white, still unaffected, still pure. It could be murder happening on that screen minutes before. The screen is still innocent, unaffected, unscathed by these flickering shadows and light. But somehow richer, the screen is richer because of the experience. And it was like profound insight about how, we categorize our life as good and bad. Like, why is this happening? Why are they more blessed? Why am I in this situation? And we don't recognize that on a soul level was what would bring our soul the most joy. That's why we choose and chose before we came in to have that experience. But on top of that, I was shown that there was multiple lifetimes available for each one of us. So I could have chosen in that moment of the car wreck to leave the planet. I could have chosen to come back with some disabilities. I could have come back with, so many options. I can't even tell you like this download, like the myriad, the trillions of options that I had in that one particular moment. But the moment, what I did choose was one timeline that I saw where I would come back and I would tell the world that love is all that matters. And that's what made my soul super happy. And I remember getting really joyous talking to this being in this presence. I was like, that sounds like fantastic. Like I would love to do that, to come back and tell the world that love is, he said, I say he, but it really wasn't a he, it was an androgynous being. The presence said, yes, and you'll write a book and you'll tell the world that love is all that matters. And in that book, be sure to include that each soul is here for the bliss of its own experience. And this was an odd one, but I said, okay, I can include that. The next thing he said is, include in your book that sound and light are the future of medicine. So I was very excited about it. I said, okay, sound and light is the future of medicine. That's going in my book. I was very excited about it. And with that, a panoramic life review began, a simultaneous download of every single thing that had ever happened in my life, not just poignant events, but every single thing. And most interestingly, all at once, it's kind of hard to fathom this, I know, the ripple effect of every kind, every unkind action, word, thought, intention that I had in my life. And not as a condemnation, I was literally supported and embraced with great compassion and care as I was watching these sometimes very cruel and horrible things that I did, and sometimes very kind and benevolent things that I did. And I remember there was no judgment brought upon me, but I felt judging myself, severely judging myself. And even when I was judging myself, I was sort of cradled and made to understand that under the conditions of my life and what was going on at the time, that that was the only decision I could have made in that moment, which seems horrible when you think about some of the tragic things that happen on this planet. But I was shown that in each moment, we are all doing the best we can with what we have to work with and with the choices that we've made. And so I was really stunned by that. And I was shown the ripple of all my kind and unkind acts. And I sat in that space for what seemed like a long, long time, but I'm sure was only seconds. And I remember thinking at the end of it that, oh, well, it's too late for me. Now I know that I'm here for joy, I'm here for bliss, and that my choices, my actions, everything matters, like creates and destroys universe, like what I do, my very kindest act. And yet it's too late for me. And with that thought, I said, the last thing I consciously remember about being in this presence was, I'm going into the light. That was and I remember being actually kind of excited about it, about going into the light, about seeing what's next. I mean, it was like, okay, well, I felt like I had failed in this lifetime, but I was excited to see what was next. And with that, I suddenly came back into my body, physical consciousness. And I remember when I opened my eyes, I was really sort of sad that there was no light because I had expected to be in the light. And I found myself back in my body. It wasn't like there was a choice on this or even someone saying you're going back. None of that. I just was suddenly back in my body. I opened my eyes. We were upside down at the bottom of this 80-foot cliff. The guy was next to me who was driving was full of blood, but he said he was fine. I couldn't find my cousin, so I climbed out the window. I remember, so amazing to think that I could hug my children again and that I could also live my life differently. Like I could take good care of them and good care of myself, but I wouldn't do this as a backpack of responsibility or because I had to be good, but I would do it because I get to. Like I get to embody this life and truly be alive. And I was so excited about that. So I remember climbing up this cliff, which I think is kind of amazing because it was a really steep cliff and I'm not a mountain climber. But I did. I got up the cliff and I remember everyone at the top, there was a big line of cars and people were shocked that I was climbing up this mountain. And I told them that my cousin and another passenger was down there and the paramedics started going down there. And then it started getting really weird, for me at least, is because anyone would touch me, I would like suddenly know their deepest fear and greatest joy. Like little movies of their life would flash before me. I suddenly saw that somebody with rubber boots, probably a man, was going to steal my purse. So I started to freak out because I knew that this person was going to steal my purse, which was important because I had my tickets and my passport and my, all my stuff in there, and I wanted to get back to my children. And I needed my stuff. So I started yelling out, can somebody please find my purse? And the other thing, I had bought these really cool spiritual books. I wanted my books and I have a bag of books. Can I get these books? And of course I did not. I mean, my vision was true. Somebody literally stole my purse out of the wreckage. So they took us to the hospital. I think they air flighted Carmen to the hospital, and I was in an ambulance. I'm not even sure, truthfully, because it was everything was such a blur, and I think I was probably in shock. Not only from the car wreck, but just from being overwhelmed by all this influx of knowing everybody's thoughts and feelings. So I got to the emergency room and they kind of shoveled us in. There was this really angry male nurse, and he started screaming that we had been drinking and that my cousin was going to die, and that there was there was going to be some legal, complications. If we had been drinking, they needed to take a blood test. And I was like, of course I wasn't drinking. I don't drink. And what do you mean my cousin's going to die? And I remember him saying, there was a woman yesterday with less injuries and she's dead. Your cousin is not going to make it. And it was just this harsh. And I kind of just moved him out of the way and I went in. And this is where it gets really amazing and kind of interesting. I don't know what else to say about it. Is I kind of pushed my way in and I put my hand. Carmen was on the gurney, on the stretcher, and she was unconscious. And I put my hand on her leg, and there was this ripple of energy that kind of bolted through the crown of my head, out my hands, and it rippled through Carmen. And I was like, oh, like in that moment, it was like super peaceful. I was like, oh, she's going to be okay. She's going to be fine. I knew without any doubt that she was going to be fine. And with that same male nurse grabbed my arm. And when he did, I saw him like the night before, or like beating his girlfriend or his wife or somebody. And I saw her screaming. I felt her fear as it was though I were her. And I felt his anger and his aggression as though I were him. And this is the way I was feeling all these things. It was so intense. And I just pushed him away and I was like, stop. And I ran to the bathroom. And I remember I just got in the corner in the bathroom and I was like, what is going on? It was as though a portal or something had opened up. And I remember I was in there for some time, and finally a nice nurse came in and she was like, we need to get some x-rays. Can you please come with me? And you're going to be okay. She offered me like a blanket, and I was like, I will come, but keep that nurse, the male nurse, away from me. And so they took me in to get x-rays because my neck was really hurting. And so the first x-ray came back and the doctor said, I have some bad news for you. It looks like your neck is broken. You have a fracture or whatever verbiage he said. But it was so funny because I was just like, oh, no. I was like, you don't understand that's not part of my timeline. That's not part of my life review. I just saw what my life is, and it doesn't include a broken neck, by the way. So I took my hand and I put it on my neck, and I remember just putting it on my neck and feeling that same energy moving through my own hand as though it were glued and hot on my neck. And then I was like, oh, it's fine. My neck is fine. I said, no, you need to check my neck and take another x-ray. So they did. They took 2, they took 3, they took 4. And they said, we don't know what's going on. And they clearly showed me, which I wish I could find those records. I've actually kind of gone back in time trying to find them. But unfortunately, I don't even remember the name of the guy driving the car. That's how important he was to me. So the car wreck, I don't know where I can get those records. They seem to have gone away. But anyway, it was amazing to me that they showed me this x-ray and then this x-ray that there was no break. And I said, finally, they made me like sign away my rights, and they would let me go home if I would sign away that they're not responsible if my neck was broken. And so I made it back to Dallas. I was so happy I had to call my ex-husband to come save me. Life, right? And he did. He's always been the one, I always say he's kind of like, he was always the one that was my hero. Even if he was a flawed hero, he was actually the one who was always coming to my rescue. So my first trip with another man, he has to come save me. It was just like humiliating, like so humiliating. I'm like, listen, someone stole my purse. I have no money. I can't get a ticket. Can you please, And of course he did. And so I made it back. Unfortunately, when I came back, it was just so overwhelming because I didn't have a context for all of these like spiritual gifts, I guess that people called them. To me, it felt like a kind of spiritual curse because I was like feeling everyone's emotions, seeing all these little scenarios as though I were them. And I just literally came home and just locked myself in my bedroom. And then there was like this weird sensitivity to noise and to light. So it was like blinds down, everything dark and quiet. And I just kind of hibernated trying to figure out, and I had all these prophetic dreams at this time, which that's like another whole long story. I learned so many things in these prophetic dreams. About 2 weeks out, I ventured out of my house to go visit Carmen, who was in the recovery hospital. And by the way, Carmen fared far worse than anyone in the wreck because she was in the back seat hitting her head on the roll bar side to side, side to side. So she broke every bone in her face, including her eye sockets and all her teeth. It was quite shocking when I first saw her. I walked in and I was I was literally afraid because it did not look like my cousin. She was swollen. Her teeth all had rubber bands. Her eye sockets were broken. I mean, she looked really, really like not in a good place. And it had this wave of fear go over me. And then I just calmed myself down. I remember completely and coolly saying, Chrystal, this is your cousin Carmen, and you love her. And with that, I just had this like, I had to remind myself, like, she's not her physical body. She's not what's happened to her. And with that, I remember her feeling the feelings of her mother and others in the room who were angry at me because they blamed me somehow for the car wreck because I invited her. She was my chaperone. And this is what happened to their daughter. So I get it that they were not happy, but they were not happy to see me at all. Um, the doctor was there, the nurse was there, Carmen was unconscious, and the mother was there. And I walked up and I just touched her again. And when I did, she opened her eyes. And she slowly got out of bed, and she insisted on getting out of bed. And she wanted to talk to me. And she walked over to me, like with her little IV. Everyone was super shocked that she was walking because, again, they said she had 90% brain damage and that she would never walk again. She'd never talk again. And she walked over to me and she said, Chrystal, I'm in the light. I've never been so radiant. I'm gleaming. I'm a star. And I was like, because if you go back to my childhood, and the reason I always preface this story with my childhood is because when I fell out of my body and into this time and space, and I saw this serene night punctuated with radiant stars, and I was told that that's what we are. She confirmed that to me. So it's like the universe, God, divine presence, said, you want to know that I exist before? Here is some ultimate proof. So Carmen came and out of a coma to tell me, I'm gleaming. I've never been so radiant. I'm a star. And I knew exactly what she was talking about because I have been there. And of course, her mother and the doctors were like, she's got brain damage. And, they were like, not having it. And so she got back into bed and immediately went back into coma. But strangely, every time I would come and I would touch her, she would sit up and tell me things. Like one time I came in, she told me, there's three beings of light around me, like balls of light. They're my guardians. They've been with me forever. They love me unconditionally. And they're assuring me that this is all going to work out. They're going to be with me. And really her recovery was quite intense. I think she had like 18 operations and she did have to like relearn many things, her to speak again, to feed herself again, to walk again. Another time I came in and out of coma, she got up and she told me, again, this reaffirming thing, you're going to write a book. You're going to tell the world that love is all that matters. And don't forget to include that sound and light is the future of medicine. I'm like, what? And then she went back into coma. And this time her mom was freaking out because this was happening. She said, I don't think it's healthy. I'm not sure what you're doing. I think she thought it was some kind of poltergeist or something. Don't come back here. I don't want you visiting my daughter anymore. And so I was uninvited to visit Carmen anymore. And I did lose contact with her. But the cool thing is just recently I initiated my friendship with Carmen because she also lives here in Dallas, close by me. And that's a whole story, but I was able to get like some of the details of the car wreck from her because again, at that time in my life, I was so freaked out. I had no clue. But so she told me that the car accident happened on February 23rd, 1977. And I thought that we had only fallen 25 feet, but she said, no, Chrystal, it was 80 feet. We hit at 25 and then we flipped. It was a total of 80. I said, oh, and other details that she shared with me of recent. But so, after I was uninvited to see her, I just kind of went into the mode of like, I need to find a way to stop all these downloads. I need to close this portal because it was not what I wanted. I did not want to be psychic. I did not want to know people's feelings. I didn't want to know their deepest fears. And so I gradually taught myself. I think I said 1977. It was 1997. And I remember at the end of all this stuff, I still felt like there was this void, like it didn't have, and even religious. I mean, I read the Vedas, I read the Upanishads, I read Buddhist texts, I did long silent retreats of 10 days where you would meditate for 16 hours a day. I did fasting for 20 days. I did everything looking for this kind of truth that I had felt in this space. And what I found at the end of all of that, though it was good for my personality, yes, it did help me, it educated me. I learned a lot. I learned that most religions out in the world have some good, some bad, take the good, leave the bad, but that wasn't the ultimate truth. And I realized that the ultimate truth was forever alive within me. And that truth is alive in all of us. And that truth is the essence of what people call love. And the best definition that I ever found for love, which completely changed my life, came from a little Indian sage who never wrote any of his own teachings, but only his disciples' transcript. And there's a book called Who Am I by Ramana Maharishi. And one of the disciples asked him, Master, what is love? And he said, love is the pure light of undifferentiated consciousness. And that sentence changed my life because it resonated with absolute truth. So love is pure, it's vibration, it's energy, it's undifferentiated, meaning that it has no uh, hierarchy. All things are loved equally. And it's conscious, it's aware, is the best definition of that energy that I felt embraced by, was this pure light of undifferentiated consciousness that completely loved me unconditionally and with no hierarchy of like you had to do this to be loved, or because you did that you're not loved. It was just unconditional, pure, untainted, and it changed my life. That one, I mean, I that's like the core of my teaching now as I teach this lessons on love. And when I say that love is all that matters, you know, so many people wounded by love, hurt by those who say they love them, even their primary caretakers and people they trust. That is not love. Love is pure, radiant, undifferentiated energy. And so when we talk about love is all that matters, that brings us back to if it's pure and undifferentiated, that means all shadows, all darkness is included in this love. And so, from my perspective, love is on a continuum that circles back to itself. So, one and center point would be neutral, one light, one side brighter, the other side darker, but they all converge into the same thing. And we get to choose on our personal timelines where we want to be on that continuum, what would bring our soul joy. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because I'm ready to share the message that was so gracefully bestowed upon me. And I'm just so grateful to be able to share it and these kind of platforms. So thank you, Serge. Thank you so much.
So, Chrystal, how your life changed after this experience?
My life changed significantly after this experience because, first of all, the verification that there is something really profound in the universe that loves us, that cares for us, that everything that happens in our lives is actually happening for us and not to us. And so my perspective changed. As I told you, it was like it was a spark of healing these deep wounds that probably I've carried for lifetimes. So I literally became a new person. I also felt like even my physical body changed in the sense that there's a higher resonance, a higher frequency, a higher vibration in my body. So as I started to shred the layers of trauma and drama, my body started to enliven, and even the cellular structures enliven. And you know, as I told you, I had all these gifts and these downloads that were given to me, prophetic dreams. So my whole entire perspective of what is true um, is different. Like I feel like this. One of the things I do think that's different about my experience is that many people they want to go back to that beautiful light and place, and maybe because I didn't go that far to the other side. But from my perspective, I wanted to come back here and complete my life mission, and I recognized and I was shown that this life is such a gift. And I had thought of this life beforehand as like something I had to trudge through, a burden that I had to, you know, somehow make it through.
They just have some noise over there.
When
That's okay. We'll wait a little bit. Yeah, it's a plane. It's a plane,
One
or is
second, I
it?
think there's somebody pulling. No, it's something outside. She's gonna go see what it is.
Maybe it's
Okay. Oh, I think the car is leaving. Just one second, okay? Can you send him a text, please? Just please not to start the cars up. Okay.
okay. You guys have a lot of guns over there in Texas. Just shoot him. I'm kidding. I'm
I don't think my husband would appreciate that.
you say, yeah, I can do that. All
Yeah.
right. So, Crystal, do you believe in reincarnation?
So I absolutely believe in reincarnation. And I mean, I always make this joke, like you never step in the same river twice. Like you are not who you were a minute ago. You are continually reincarnating as someone new. Yes, I believe, if you just look at the laws, Newton's laws, energy, transforms, it never dies. That's one level. But from my perspective as a soul, on my soul level, on my soul experience, I was even shown in my near death experience, not only we reincarnated, but we get to choose the life that we want to live, and we have lots of different opportunities for that. And by the way, this is not the only species. We could probably choose to live on different planets and different species and different energies. I always say my next incarnation, I'm going to choose to live in a light world that's a little brighter. I'm tired of this world. I'm going to go to a little brighter world next time.
Now, why do you think, Crystal, that you were sent back from that experience? Why didn't you pass to heaven or to another dimension at that time in your life? Why you came back here on Earth? Do you have a mission here?
So I think I explained a little bit earlier that when I was in the presence of this divine being and downloaded all of these different possibilities for my life, I, like all souls, I get to choose. And it's not that I was sent back. I know many people will say that they're sent back or they're forced back. But the truth of it is, at least from my perspective, is that the deep longing of their essence and their being wants to complete a mission that they have not yet completed. So if they're back here, it's because it brings their soul great joy to be here, even if they don't acknowledge it in the veiled state. So sometimes I think I was one privileged to see and understand that I get to choose. Some people are veiled from this knowledge, and the reason that they're veiled is because if they were given this knowledge, their life would change dramatically. And they're supposed to not know so that they can make these choices uninformed about this higher truth, which we all come in veiled. But even from the near death experience, you can come back and be veiled. Many people say that they would download all this information and then they come back, they can't remember anything. And the reason for that is because you're supposed to be human. You're supposed to be the same person you were when you left so that you can complete the mission that you came to do. And the mission is always to be the next most radiant version of yourself. It's not anything else than that. Some people say, oh, I want to come and be a good mother. I want to come and have some work I need to complete. The truth is, you come back to shine brighter and to evolve. Once there's no more possibility of evolving here, and you can no longer leave a imprint that will be transformational in the planet, you go. No one stays after that.
Hmm. So you trying to say that some, like, let's say, young people right now, is a war is going on here in Europe, and some kids or some young people die, and they have nothing else to do here, nothing else to accomplish. This is why they pass.
In that particular incarnation, that doesn't mean they're not immediately back in another body. So sometimes we come in, you might think of it so unfair, like a child dying young of cancer, a young man dying in war, some unfortunate murder, whatever you want to talk about. It's all the same. It's hard to say like you would choose to come and have, like, for example, I can say with my life, I come into an abusive family where I go to school with bald spots because my hair is being pulled out, bleed, bruises. How can you say that I chose that? And I remember a time in my life when if somebody had told me that, it would have made me really angry. Um, but at this point in my life, with my perspective within a larger context, I recognize that nothing has happened to me. No one can ever hurt my precious soul. No one can be hurt. And if I choose this experience, because this experience, either I'm coming in as a bodhisattva, meaning I come as sacrificial lamb to be maybe that pivotal person in the family that breaks the chains and changes everything, or in the war, to your, to your point, um, whatever it may be, that it gives my soul joy to come and to have that experience and to supersede it. Like, one of the things that I really love about my childhood is that I mentor so many young people, and no one can look in my eyes and say, oh, it's because you had a silver spoon, you had this wonderful childhood, you've never had any, we lived on food stamps, we had very little food, I had bald spots, I had bruises, I had abuse, like physical abuse plus mental abuse, which is really hard. Um, and so you can look in my eyes and I can tell you, yes, I beat the odds, and so can you. Yes, the odds are stacked against you, but you can do it. And all you have to do is, in each moment, ask yourself, what is my most loving choice now? And sometimes my most loving choice is pretty mean, but that's all I got. That's what I choose in that moment. And so it's this progressive thing that you just keep choosing more love and more love. It's not like a big complex problem. It's so simple that it's often overlooked. What if all of us in each moment we just asked, what is my most loving choice now? What can I do that is the most love? What can I say? What can I think? What can I do? How can I impact my own life and the world? Just a simple question. And then do your best. That's all you can ever do. You might fail, but at least you try. So it's not about, people think a lot of times you have to succeed. You don't have to succeed. You have to try. And that's what grows the spiritual energy of your soul, is this doing your best you can. It's like you will probably fail more in your life than you'll ever succeed. But the moment that you succeed, everything changes. And that's the beauty of being human, is that we get to choose this.
Now, coming back to my question about reincarnation. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask.
Okay.
I I had one guest on my show. He told me, well, he told the audience that when he was in the light, he didn't miss anybody. He didn't miss his parents, his children, his wife, his anybody. He was just happy to be there. He didn't care. He didn't care at all. He didn't think about anybody. And I got a lot of comments, like kind of a little bit of confused comments, that how come he didn't miss anybody? And then also in the end of the video, I asked him, what's the most important thing that you realized on the other side? He said, I realized that we should love. So he said, love your loved ones, love your children, love your parents, love everybody. And it's a contradiction. You didn't miss anybody, but you say that we should love everybody. So did you miss anybody when
So
you were in the light?
I don't think it's a contradiction that you don't miss anybody and and that you say you love, because the thing is, it's, if you're coming from the perspective that your life is shadows and light projected onto a screen, then the movie stops. And the truth of you is this presence, this screen, this untarnished. That's the truth of everybody. And we are all connected on multiple levels. So even if you're not connected in this particular universe, in this particular embodiment, we are all connected throughout time and space. There is nothing, no missing. You cannot possibly ever miss anyone, because you were intricately connected to them, as though you were connected to your own fingernail, like they're with you forever. So I think what he was probably, and I don't know, but I can just say he was probably saying is that what he doesn't miss that part of his existence, because he is in a bigger space, a bigger context, more united, and he was ready to let that part go, which I was not, right? I was ready. I was not ready. I didn't feel like I'm ready to let these people go. And even my children, when I thought about losing my children and leaving them here, I was shown that their life would be fine without me. And that, matter of fact, each soul is here for the bliss of its own existence. And so there's this great peace about leaving them behind, because you know that they're living out their own life experience, which will be fine with you and will be equally fine without you. And so all possibilities have already come into completion. The end is always the same: love and more love. It's just how we get there that's different, right? So I don't think it's a contradiction.
Yeah. No, it was not a contradiction to me. It was contradiction to the people
Ah, okay.
who watched
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
video, and they were
Okay,
writing that in the comments. They said, okay,
I
there's a
get that.
contradiction. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
I had one guest, one lady, and she had the same experience. She died, and she felt guilty while she was on the other side. She felt guilty that she doesn't miss her kids. She didn't miss her kids, and she said, "How come I don't miss them? I'm dying here." So she felt guilty about that when she come back. I don't remember.
Probably, there was some kind of unfinished business there, that, and so that guilt, if it came, she's probably feeling guilty even in her life here. I would imagine that she's feeling like 'cause you can be with somebody even on the same planet and not be with them. I mean, I remember being married in my first marriage, as I told you, that was kind of a disaster, and never being more lonely in my entire life than when I was married with this man who was in my space, but was a complete empty void in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like I was completely alone, even though I wasn't. I don't think I've ever been quite so lonely as when I was married and this unhappy marriage.
But then he was your best friend after that, right?
He's still my best friend. Like we're still really good friends. I don't think that, as a matter of fact, some of your soulmates, let's talk about soulmates, are the ones that come and say, I'll be the asshole. I'll be the one to trigger you. I'll be the one to hurt you. I'll be the one to abandon you. Why? Because I love you so much. And your soul longs for this experience so that you can choose to shine brighter or not, but you're having the opportunity to do that. And so the misconception, I believe, on soulmates is many times that people think they're only soft and comforting and there to support
Yeah.
you. Yes, they are soft and comforting, but their support might be triggering you, might be pissing you off, might be hurting you, might be doing whatever, but it is not necessarily all. Now, there are soulmates, I think, that are perfectly aligned, that literally come in, and without them, without their love, without their presence, your life would be so empty. And that's also a soulmate, but it's not a one size fits all on the soulmates. I literally believe that everyone that you pass and meet in your life is a soul companion, which is why in my book I say I love you, because I believe that we're all connected. Now, there's levels of intimacy, of course. I'm more united and intimate with my husband than with anyone else on the planet, obviously. But everyone that I pass and meet is intricately connected to me, right, on a soul level. And by the way, we have soul family outside of this planet that have known us for eons, like these radiant beings, right, that are always by our side. I do meditations at night that I also film, and I see glowing balls of light around me when I'm meditating. And I just film them because it makes me happy. And then part of the thing is when I was working on the abandonment issue, when I recognized that I had this soul family that was always with me, the abandonment issue went away. I was just so grateful to have them. And the funny thing about that, because they're in a high vibrational space, if I'm in a very dark space, if I'm having a bad day, really feeling ill, sad, depressed, there was no orbs around me, because you have to keep your energy at a certain level for them to even be able to show up in your sphere. So I know, because of that evidence, and because of what my cousin told me, and because of my own experience and near death experience, that this is not it. And there's a lot more to our connection than this. Think about this life like a speck, because within all of time and space, which is infinite, which is, imagine if I knew you, Sage, for 5 years. I know you right now, I've known you for a couple hours, right? But now I know you for 5 years. Imagine I know you for 500 years. Now imagine that I've known you for 5,000 years, 500,000 years, 5 million years, 5 trillion years, and on and on. How much more would I love you? And these beings have known you for infinite time and space. And you know that this speck, 89 minutes, 89 years, whatever it is on the planet, 100 years, whatever it is absolutely nothing in the scope of time and space, which is infinite. And so, to say I don't miss someone in this speck because I'm united with them in this infinite space makes perfect sense to me as far as the math goes. Um, and everyone's at a different place. And the other thing I think about just the loving universe is, when you think about it, We're given this like speck, this nothingness, right? This blink of an eye and you're gone in infinite time and space, right? So that's why I cannot believe that what we do here would send us to heaven or send us to hell, because this is nothing compared to the math is off. It should be what we do here affects this rather than this affecting that. But we know that that's not even true anyway. The truth is that it's all love. We get to choose our path. We will all end up in the same place. It's a kind, benevolent, loving universe. Our creator is the presence of pure, undifferentiated light, which is what we are. And so there's just this joy. But, if we have the veiled experience of like guilt, maybe I'm working with guilt or conflict within myself of like, I don't really believe that they're coming with me. Or, I don't think that my mom misses Chrystal, the crystal embodiment. I think she's united with the crystal embodiment right now in another realm. I miss her presence because I'm still here, but this is nothing. I'll be with her like that. You're going to close your eyes, you're going to be together. So I think if you understand that, then there's nothing to miss because you're forever united, number one. And this embodiment will be over sooner than, it's like, I call it like night to morning, or, you close your eyes, hopefully you have 8 hours of sleep, and you wake up and it feels like you just closed your eyes. That's how quick death comes. And I feel like at a certain point in your life, and you probably understand this as well, like I'm at this place where you have less time in front of you than you have behind you. So the time becomes more poignant. And like my time here is so important. I'm very selective who I spend my time with, how I spend my time, and what I do with it, because my time here is coming to an end. Like I'm at 63 years old now. So we're moving forward. We're not moving
You are my
backwards. You know
age,
what I'm
Chrystal. I'm
saying?
63 too.
Oh, you look great.
Thank
Would
you. You
not
look
have
great too.
known.
I was going to tell you,
Thank you.
you look like Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, I'm 63. But I think maybe,
Ah,
maybe the spirituality makes us look a little young. I hope so.
I think so too. I do think that's a vibrational thing.
Okay. Now, if people want to find more about you, about your work, about your book, where can they do that if you'd like to share?
So the most efficient way to contact me is through my website, which is Chrystal, Chrystal, Rae, RAE.com. Soul, Chrystal Rae, Soul, SOUL.com. So it's Chrystal Rae Soul. And then you can contact me. I'm also available to do speaking. I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I have a TED Talk coming up. Some talks with women's groups. I've been featured at the Near Death conference, the INs. I'm doing a keynote speaker next year as well. But I also love just doing small venues, and I don't say no to anyone. I want, if 10 people want to talk to me, I've done little talks at churches for 10 people. I've had 80,000 people on a podcast. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I go where my heart tells me to go. And also, if you have questions, I feel like that one of the gifts that I have is, when I was a little girl, the only thing I ever asked God for was wisdom. And I think that's one of the gifts that I've been given in this lifetime. I'm grateful to share that, because really it's a gift, and if you don't share it, then it's wasted, So it's only yours if you share it. So if anyone has questions, and I always get a lot of questions, and I'm happy to answer them. It does take me a minute because I am going to sit down personally with your question and meditate on it and think about it before I just send you an auto response or something. Like, I will actually listen and I will actually reach out to you. It might take me a few days, but I'll get back to you. So it's always a joy for me. I think my email address is on that website at crystalraysoul.com, and you can just send me a quick email and I'll get back to you.
This episode is sponsored by refractivehealing.com. I highly recommend scheduling a remote healing with Jamie, as she is a talented healer and I had a great experience with her. She performed some kind of healing over me online, and I'm telling you, I was in a state of meditation like in 5 seconds. She's currently offering free healing sessions, so just visit the website refractivehealing.com to book a session with her. I will leave a link to the website in the pinned section below.